Thanks for listening to the Military to Civilian Career Transition Power Hour. 1 hour of tips from experts and real stories from people just like you. For those thinking about what lies ahead, for those going through the job search, and those who have paved the way to their next career after the military. These professionals are dedicated to helping you move forward successfully to the next phase of your career after the military. Welcome to Exchange.
Welcome to the Military to Civilian Career Transition Power Hour. I am your host, Cheryl Cross, and the first part of every episode of our Power Hour is somebody who is actively thinking about or going through service transition. I call it the soup. You're flying by instruments. You're taking classes, you've read books, you've gone through TAPS or ETAPS, and you're trying to put it all together to have a successful journey from military service into a civilian career. I found this woman on was it a webinar we were on? And I saw her profile on LinkedIn and I was so excited when I said, would you please come tell your story? She is sitting in Germany. She's serving the United States Air Force, go Thunderbirds, and she is currently in a SkillBridge program and participating with Allegiant vets. I'd like you to meet Kristen Cropp. Hi, Kristen. How are you doing today?
Hello, I'm doing well, thank you.
I appreciate you being up so late at night. Our time zones are very weird. I'm in Hawaii, you're in Europe, and you told me that you are there with your family. You are navigating service and your career and the end of your career, not only in your comm, but you also have your children with you. How's that experience been for you?
Yes, it's been quite a lovely experience, I think, having the opportunity to show my children the world and for them to live all different places. And we grow together through all of this. So as I'm transitioning out of the Air Force, my daughter is transitioning out of high school and my son is transitioning out of elementary school. So we're growing together.
You're having the same experience, just different things. Wonderful. You talked to me a little bit about what your MOS was and that you went to a conference for that. You're in the administrative ranks, is that right?
Yes. My AFSC is administration. So we really focus on human resources, executive support, and postal. Now, I've spent my whole career doing traditional administration work. This is my first time stepping outside of that and doing postal, and I've been doing that for 3 years now.
And are you thinking about going to the United States Post Office when you leave the
Not at
military?
all. No, I am what I like to say an inside cat. I prefer
Right.
the administration side of things.
So you are part of the Allegiant Vets program. Talk to us about your current experiences, SkillBridge, otherwise. What's happening right now? Is it easy? Is it difficult? Any surprises?
So Allegiant Vets has really allowed me to focus on my transition and focus on doing the things I need to do to make sure when I leave the military that I'm in the best position possible. Having the time to go to my medical appointments, having time to, get my house ready for them to pick up my household goods and all of those things. We still have, the mandatory things that we have to take care of, but for the most part, it really just eases your transition. It gives you time to do a lot of the stuff you would not be able to do if you were still, working and having to deal with the ins and outs of day-to-day business. It really just gives you a lot of your time back.
Question I have for you, because you're in what we call HR, do you think that people feel that you sort of know how to do this since you're part of administration?
Absolutely.
Is that kind of a preconception?
A
Tell me
lot of
about that.
times people think that you either know somebody or that you've seen so many people do it before that it's easy, but everybody's transition is different. So what one person did worked for them, and if I try to do that exact same path, I'll find something that doesn't necessarily work for me and my situation.
That's so true. I've heard this a lot, and maybe you've heard this from people that are mentoring you or you've talked to that have been out for a minute, that transition is a lifetime. If you've spent any amount of time in a certain environment, military or otherwise, that you become so accustomed to that environment that pivoting to something that is so different. The whole reason I started this podcast was to really give voice to those folks who really weren't being heard. I was sitting in a TAPS class, and one of the presenters had been out of the military for 20 some odd years. He forgot where the base gate was. He'd served there. And he was a success story, and he had a great story, but he had forgotten the suck. He'd forgotten what it felt like to sit in those chairs. In fact, I don't even think they had TAPS class when he got out of the military. So it kind of catalyzed me to create a forum so I could talk to people like you. And you have very unique circumstances. You're Oconus, and you're outside the U.S. The folks who are listening that may not be military affiliated, I want you to know that countries love the fact that the U.S. is there. And I'm rolling my eyes, being kind of facetious, but they want you out. You can't just dump people into someone's country. You have to repatriate them. So if they don't have income or a job to stay or citizenship or be affiliated with somebody who does, your exit strategy is probably pretty swift. So they don't want burdens, right?
Okay.
So I'm curious, having two children, even though one's an adult, and then being a single parent, and then also being in Europe, do you feel that this is extra, I don't want to say burden, extra things for you to do? How is that?
Yes. So it's the scariest thing I've ever had to do. And I've had children and I've served in Iraq. And this really is towards the top of that list of scary things that you'll face in your life because luckily for me, I have a support system back in the US. I have my mother and I have my sister, and I'm moving back to my hometown. So I have a soft place to land. But there's many others who, aren't that lucky. And it's just one of those things you just have to take it one day at a time. And for me, it feels like there's no amount of preparation that can get you ready for that next step because sometimes things happen that you can't control. You may have a plan for what you want to do, and then all of a sudden that plan is not necessarily the plan anymore. I always liken it to when you're driving, say you're, following your GPS and, you're supposed to make a right turn, but you keep going straight and your GPS will reroute you somewhere else. So it's a big game of kind of like rerouting yourself to make sure that you find the best fit, because you have to look at, if it's just me moving, then I would be okay. I'll find a 2-bedroom apartment for me and my dog and my son, and we'll be good. But, when you have other people you have to think about, you have to look at the school systems and, everything else. So it's definitely a whirlwind, I'll say.
And you're in a weird time zone, getting on phone calls, being involved with interviews.
Yes.
It's probably weird for a lot of companies that are hiring administrative or HR, or I haven't even asked, what is it you want to do? What career are you going to start into or go into?
So I thought that it was HR, but I'm noticing that military HR and civilian HR don't, they don't fit perfectly like Lego blocks. It's a lot of things on the civilian side that, are different from how we do things in the military. So just sharpening those skills, I still think that I would like to remain within HR because being in this career field has been something that I've been passionate about my entire career. So I do think that I want to remain in that, but just making sure that I find the best fit for me, not just jumping into it because it's a job, I need the money, and just finding the right fit.
So when you talk about fit and you interview companies, and I'm saying that on purpose because I want everyone to listen, who's listening, to understand that when you go through an interview, you're interviewing them as well. It's not just you. It's not them accepting you. It's not just them wanting you. It's you wanting them back.
Yes.
So, and that's different coming from the military. You're never really given that choice, right? You're told what to do.
Yes.
You might have a list and you might get picked from that list, but that's about it. So you go do a job. You're very flexible and fungible, but the career environment for corporate side is way different, and they expect you to have the answers. So, and not a lot of companies understand military culture or where you're coming from. Lack of good onboarding or training for their recruiters makes it somewhat difficult, which is another reason that I'm doing this show. So thank you for letting me stand on my soapbox during your segment. I'm curious, this show is timeless, Kristen, but right now as we record, the HR world is being hit with a lot of layoffs. Reorganization is happening. This generally happens this time of year, between December and April. This is when you'll see the big tech layoffs or just layoffs. This is when companies, a lot of them just get rid of 100 to several thousand people. A lot of times that is in the internal parts of the organization, which impacts HR. Have you been seeing that?
For me, I have not been seeing that. I've been seeing some of the tech layoffs that you mentioned, but I haven't been seeing them within the HR realm.
I think because I am a recruiter and I sit on the talent acquisition and then retention side, I see a lot more of it. So a lot of the recruiters and then the talent management folks are out looking for jobs. All very talented people. I'm sure they'll get placed. But for you, having going into a career that would be somewhat new, how does that change your strategy at all? Are you taking entry-level conversations? Tell me a little bit more about that.
So I'm definitely entertaining entry-level conversations because I know that there is a lot that I need to learn, as well as continuing to pursue my education. So, when you're in the military and when you're a parent, a lot of times those things take precedence to taking care of yourself. And for me, education was the one thing. So I haven't finished my bachelor's degree yet. I'm very close, but I know that's one of those things that will, kind of set you apart or put you in a better standing with a company. So yes, looking at those entry level positions and, continuing to better myself so that I am marketable for those positions that are maybe not quite entry level, but you might need a little bit of education to match with your experience.
You mentioned that you do have a home of record and that the military will be moving you back there, which is great. Someone else I talked to on the show, she didn't have a home of record really, or she did, but nobody was there that was family. So it made her relocation a bit challenging. Have you been specifically looking at companies in that area? Or are you looking at companies that offer remote opportunity? What's your plan?
So I'm used to this lifestyle of being all over the world whenever and wherever. So I've been mainly looking in the DMV area, but I've also been, playing a game of, United States roulette and seeing which state looks nice on that day. So I've looked in Florida, I've looked in Virginia, I've looked in North Carolina, we've looked in Los Angeles. We've looked so many different places. I just base it on what my son thinks is cool that week. So it's
Is let your teenagers decide.
Yes, because they're the ones that'll have to deal with making friends and everything else. So yeah, it's
Well, you have an 11-year-old who's going into middle school, is that right?
yes.
So you want to pick a place that he can stay stable. I don't know.
Yes,
Does he like
somewhere with good
moving around?
schools, mainly.
Yeah.
His biggest concern is, being able to make friends because at this school, this is the longest that he's ever been at one school. And he's, got his core group of friends that he comes and talks about every single day. And he really doesn't want to leave Germany. And I think it's mainly because of the friendships. So,
Right.
yeah, finding somewhere where he can, grow into his own. A strange time for kids that preteen going into middle school. It's difficult. So making sure that he's comfortable. And I really think that being back at home in Maryland will be the best thing for him because he'll be surrounded by so much family.
And opportunities for mom and the sibling. Is it your daughter you said is 18?
Yes, she's joining the Air Force. So she's
Following mom's footsteps, right on.
same
Right on.
career field and everything.
I grew up near Nellis Air Force Base in Las Vegas. So I'm a huge Air Force fan. And I talk about the Thunderbirds because, we used to go watch them at air shows.
yeah.
And everyone I went to high school with was from the Air Force. It felt like it was, I think, 60 to 70% Air Force kids. And they were amazed that I grew up in only 2 homes. And I was amazed that they grew up all over the world, that they had this opportunity. So We always want what we don't have,
Yeah.
I think, as kids, maybe even as adults. But I hope he turns around to you someday and says, thanks, Mom, for giving me all those adventures. It certainly makes them resilient.
Yeah.
And I believe, even though this is timeless, this is the month of the military child.
It sure is.
So we want to honor and respect our military children, those military brats. What has been the most difficult part of the transition other than relocating back home and finding a job?
I think the most difficult part is a lot of times people don't associate the grief that goes along with leaving the military. So it's one of those things where it's all you've known. For me, it's all I've known for 20 years. I've been in the military longer than I was alive before I joined the military. So
Right.
it's almost like losing a part of yourself. So allowing yourself to really just take a step back and just learn who you are outside of the uniform, I think is probably the most difficult part, because at the end of, when the retirement ceremony is over and everything, you're no longer rank and last name. You are, Kristen Cropp, the girl from Maryland who's stepping out on her own again for, the second time in her lifetime. So that's been the most difficult part for me.
As a recruiter, I heard a lot of people say that this whole process of transitioning was very frightening for them. They used big, dark words like abyss, jumping off a cliff. And that also kind of catalyzed me into creating this so other people could express how they're feeling. So with all that said, is there anything else you'd like to add that you're kind of going through or feeling, or any last alibis that you'd like to share with our listening audience?
I think for the most part, it is a certain level of excitement that you just need to embrace, because at the end of the day, you will still have your health, you'll still have your family, you'll still have your friends, and you'll just need to figure out how to tailor that to fit into your new lifestyle. So just embrace the change. Don't back down from it. Just embrace it and face it head on, because that's really the only way that you'll get through to the other side. And think positively about it as well. So I know I say there's a grief associated with it, but think about all of the wonderful things that come along with it as well. The world traveling, the benefits, just all of the friends that you've made that are family now along the way. Just really just embrace those things that you've gained across your journey.
Thank you for platforming that. And I do want to end the segment by saying, not only thank you to Kristen, who literally just yesterday said that she would record a segment, or 2 days ago. This was a very fast turnaround. But also to those of you who are wondering what's ahead, I know that you are completely capable. And I say this on every show. You are strong, you are brave, you are skilled, and you are trained. And you take this for granted. But the civilian workforce needs those 4 things independently. If people just had one, but you have all 4. So think of this as assets and finding out what it is you want to do and getting into a job where you can kind of feel it out, and then calling it a career that you really grow. That's kind of the hope. Well, I'm going to be watching you, Kristen. I'm going to be watching you. And if I can help you in any way, because this is also my field, I'd be happy to give you some tips and tricks and maybe introduce you to some folks who I know. Happy to see people making transitions from Europe back into the U.S. and contributing to the economy. So that is the goal,
yes,
right?
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure and an honor. Thank you for your service and the very best of luck. My name is Cheryl Cross. We're going to end the soup segment, take a very brief break, and then we'll be talking to an expert. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Cheryl Cross, and you're listening to the Military to Civilian Career Transition Power Hour. I'm so excited to bring you another expert. She comes from my LinkedIn circle of professionals. She is an executive coach. She is a keynote speaker. She is a Marine, and she's in Southern California, but available to a global audience. I'd like to introduce you to my guest, Sandra Gonzalez.
It's an absolute honor to be here.
You are on the podcast circuit. I've seen you countless times. You're showing up all over LinkedIn, and the advice you give is so good. And I think, and I don't want to assume, but you've had the experience that many of the people who are listening have had. You spent how many years in the Marine Corps?
I spent 20 years in the Marine Corps. It was an honor to have served my country for 20 years. And I actually have an older daughter who just served 5 years. She's also a Marine Corps veteran, and she's studying psychology now in North Carolina.
Congratulations. So you're a vet and a Marine mom, so you're continuing the legacy. And I see that a lot in the services. Each branch has that lineage. Was she inspired by your service, or were you inspired by someone's service in your family to go into the Marine Corps?
I told my father that I wanted to go to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, which is a great architecture school, the School of Architecture here in California. And he said, well, that's great, mija. But there is a but. I can't afford to send you to the school. But you should join the military. The military can provide your off-duty education. You can travel. You can get so many benefits out of the military. What I didn't know at the time, Cheryl, was that my father was an immigrant to this country, but later became a proud American citizen. Mm-hmm. And he always wanted to serve. So he was the one that planted the seed, and I was the one who chose the Marine Corps.
Oh, I like that. I like that. Is your father still with us?
My father passed just 3 years ago, Cheryl. One of the things I often say is that I'm very grateful that I had a father who gave me the skill sets, what I call sexy confidence, to be assertive, to be authentic, to serve others. I'm grateful he taught me so many lessons that I still benefit from to this day.
What was your father's name?
Oh, thank you, Cheryl, for asking. His name was Miguel Ponce.
So you have a purpose and a passion, and it's not just because of Miguel, your father. It's probably a little bit of everything, but you really are giving back to the space of the veteran. This is what resonated with me for you, is that you're giving such solid advice. We can sit here forever and talk about all the commonalities that we see in this group of people that are coming out, no matter where they are in their career transition. The inability to kind of figure out what they want to do. Mm-hmm. In my thoughts, you haven't pre-planned enough. I wrote a book, a 3-year planning guide, right? Salary negotiation. You don't negotiate for any salary in the military. So why would you know how to do that coming out and going into the corporate world? Those are the top things that I see on people having difficulty. And I'd love for you to pick just one of them. So if you were to pick something that really is a common theme that you see in transitioning military that you provide help for, what would it be?
What I see, Cheryl, this ability to, it is a disability, I should say. They play small. We play small. We minimize our accomplishments. We don't highlight what we've done, what we've experienced. And life is always dropping subtle hints. And this is one of the things I share with leaders, veteran entrepreneurs, business executives. The onus is on us to listen to those subtle hints and really truly extract the valuable information that will benefit us so we can move forward. But that oftentimes we're playing too small, dealing with imposter syndrome. Oh, I'm a fraud. Who am I to speak? Yeah. And then that's where I come in, Cheryl. It's like, who are you not to? So many people can benefit from your survival guide, your story that others are at this moment yearning to hear. Well, because we discredit our experiences or our trajectory, or we need to stop doing that and go from, now that we've gone from the we to the me, the I. This is who I am.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I stand for. And I agree that because those are two questions that I share with my clientele. Is every day you want to ask yourself, who am I? How do I want to show up today? And what do I stand for? If you ask yourself those two questions,
Mm-hmm.
you'll achieve a lot more clarity. You'll develop the strong foundation for who you are, what you stand for, so you can spark momentum, so you can step on stage, so you can speak authentically and take command, not only of any room you step into, but truly take command of your life and business.
What are some of the concrete steps that you give people for homework? Can you give us an example? I know you give homework.
I do. And it's super simple. Cheryl, you're going to laugh at this homework that I give. I actually do share it on my, like Instagram, social media pages. Start making your bed every morning. And oftentimes people just, they wake up, they check their phones, and they're already doing routine. My recommendation is that you practice a morning ritual. There's a big difference between a ritual and a routine. And when you practice a morning ritual, you wake up with intention. You wake up with this ability to know what you want to achieve that day. And my recommendation is that you make your bed. And this experience came from me being a Marine Corps drill instructor for 3 years. It's the first thing we teach these recruits
Mm-hmm.
is how to make an impeccable bed. But what is tied to that? What is tied to that is it's your first accomplishment for the day.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have this first accomplishment, how does that make you feel? It makes you feel incredible because you've accomplished something. And when you've accomplished something, it creates a ripple effect
Mm-hmm.
that sets in motion what I call these high caliber habits.
Mm-hmm.
So small homework assignments
Make
for
your
the
bed.
viewers. Make your bed. And as you're making your bed, be grateful as you're making your bed because someone didn't wake up this morning. Someone doesn't have this luxury you have of having a roof over your head and a comfortable bed.
What is it that really compelled you to do career coaching and entrepreneurship for people coming out of the military? Why are you focusing on this group?
I came out of the Marine Corps and I said, I'm done. I've closed that chapter. And as I was building my brand, as I was building, my business, I had several coaches telling me, Sandra, you need to work with veterans. And I said, no, I don't. I need to work with my target audience, business executives. I attracted C-suite leaders, and this is my target audience. Well, in the process of, marketing and promoting myself, who did I naturally attract? Veteran entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And just working with them, my heart is in it to help them succeed, just, as well as with any other type of high caliber entrepreneur. They're perfectionists. We want to control things. We want to take control. After all, we come, especially with a military background, we're structured, we're organized, we're going to dictate what's going to happen today. Well, life happens. And when life happens, we have to let go. We have to learn how to surrender. That sometimes when we surrender, it's actually much better than what we could possibly imagine. Letting go, surrendering, allows us to, be open to more abundance. Letting go, surrendering, allows us to enjoy the process even more because who am I gonna, when you wake up and you let go of resistance and you're open to, this growth mindset, magical things happen.
Mm-hmm.
And And it's this process of surrendering that I've learned that I'm not in control, and I must allow myself to really listen to what's calling at me, not what's clawing at me. And when we learn how to differentiate the two, listen to what's calling at me, not clawing at me, I let go of my ego. And one of the things, I share with these leaders is our ego's not our amigo. And it's, we got to take a step back and look at, okay, I really wanted to force the issue here. I really wanted to make, in my case, my marriage work or this business work. And we're not in control. So when things don't go as planned, we have to learn to shift our focus on the cure, not the disease. And so it's all dependent on who I'm coaching, Cheryl.
Yeah.
But I help them understand that it's about shifting our perspective, extract the lesson, learn to fail forward, and be open to life surprising you.
I love that you work with entrepreneurs because it's a lonely business.
I know that too well.
One of the things that all of us tell people coming out of the military or transitioning past a good chunk of service time is you're so wonderfully capable and independent, but please try not to do everything alone. And transition is just one of the things. Why I want to bring 100 voices of transition. So even if you are by yourself or trying to navigate this by yourself, at least you're hearing stories, right? That's the one thing I can offer. So growth calling, not clawing. Growth is calling you, right? Not clawing at you. What would be clawing? Would it be finances? Would it be over maybe reaching? What would be some of those clawing things? Would it just be life in general? Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yes, so it could be a little bit of everything, So I'll go back to the calling. The calling part is our gut intuition. It's like this, there's so much wisdom within that we're especially entrepreneurs. They're looking for like sometimes a cookie cutter, system or approach to help them with their business. And what I realized was, had I listened to what was calling at me, had I listened to my intuition of just going with my methodology, helping others with this ability to cultivate sexy confidence, this ability to master ourselves so we can stay calm during stressful challenges and situations. Had I listened to my gut intuition, there would have been less resistance. It would have been a lot more fun. I would have been more authentic. So the calling is our gut intuition that has so much wisdom and knowledge, and it's there leading us if we learn to tap into it. And we could do this through a morning ritual. Now, what's clawing at us is, I feel like an imposter, Sandra. I'm an imposter. Who am I to step on that stage and talk about my business? So these are the things that are clawing at us. Or why or living with guilt? One of the things I lived for so long. Why couldn't I have saved my dad? Why couldn't I have been more educated to challenge these competent medical authorities? Why couldn't I, and I lived with guilt because I couldn't save my dad. And in the end, I've realized, I experienced this ability to give myself a healthy dose of self-compassion and learn to forgive myself was the medicine I needed to lubricate my mind and heart with peace. And in doing that, since I was able to see it within myself, I was able to forgive my ex-husband. I was able to forgive others. And that is everything. So clawing could be all sorts of things.
Yeah.
Guilt. It could be us feeling like an imposter. It could be perfectionism. It could be doubt.
Right.
I can
Right.
go on. It could be, fear of failure, fear of success.
That's a big one.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody talks really about fear of success. I'd love for
Yes.
you to do a deep dive on that.
It's about asking those thought-provoking questions so they come to the realization of, I am afraid of something here, and this thing that I keep doing, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Mhm.
So what I see, Cheryl, is that they become addicted to this way of thinking, these behaviors that are, self-limiting. And they look for that, well, they're going to find it. And they stay stuck there because, in a way, they've developed this fixed mindset. They keep looking for this evidence. Well, guess what? You're going to keep finding it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, to answer your question, yes, I have to be very direct when I do see something like that, because I'm not serving my clients if I can't be direct with them.
Right.
But it's being direct, communicating what needs to be communicated in a very direct and tactful way, so they can arrive at their own conclusion of, oh my goodness, I see what she was saying. And then the light bulb goes off. And that's where the magic happens, because now, not only is there self-awareness, but there's self-acceptance for the things that are happening. And when there's self-awareness and self-acceptance, and now because they're self-reflecting, now they can move forward because they've accepted, this is what's been happening to me, but I no longer want to stay here. How can I move forward now?
What are some of the other things that you really help people with? If you had another couple great big themes, go ahead and mention them.
Yes. And what I found interesting was a lot of people kept asking. I love in-person speaking engagements because I really get to connect with my audience. They get to see me in person and hear the message firsthand. But what I found interesting was, Sandra, how can you be comfortable in your own skin? How can we be more authentic? I'm like, interesting, I'm like, for me, it was interesting because I'm like, I don't know how to be anything else but me.
Right. You have a bit of fire. You have a lot of fire in you. That's for sure.
Thank you, Cheryl. There will never be another you. There will never be another you. Why not step into your best version of yourself? And how do we do this? Is by being authentically yourself. Knowing that you're comfortable in your own skin, you're speaking your truth, and you're communicating in a way that's in alignment with who you are and what you stand for, your values. So that's one of the things that I help my clients with, is really understand their values, because this is their strong foundation. And everybody needs a strong foundation so they can build upon. So it really stems from that. But and that's how you can be authentic. It's once you understand, this is who I am, this is what I stand for, and this is how I want to show up today.
How might you coach somebody on salary?
Money. Time is currency. And when it comes to money, so many people freeze, or again, it comes down to that self-worth, Cheryl. And this is why it's so important to really develop this. It's a muscle. Confidence is a muscle that must be protected, must be developed, must be protected, because we're all vulnerable too. Our confidence things happen in life and business. So going back to the salary, one of the things that I've shared with my clients is, what are you going to ask for? How much are you going to ask at this speaking engagement? What do you think you're worth? You know, and honestly, yes, I do get the deer in the headlights. Like, well, what do you think, Sandra? You know, no, you're going to come up with this answer. And this is the first thing I want you to do. Write down 30, start with 30, 50 preferably, 50 accomplishments, 50 of your greatest accomplishments. Write them down. To have those written down, I want you to highlight the top 10 accomplishments. What is this doing? This is strengthening, this is developing your confidence and reinforcing your self-worth and knowing, you know what? This is how much I'm worth based on this job I'm applying for, or, you know, or if you're an entrepreneur, what your prices are. So it all stems back to your self-worth. And one of the things that I have found is look at your accomplishments, look back and everything you've accomplished. This will reinforce who you are, what you stand for, so you can ask and not necessarily demand, but communicate what you're worth.
Yes.
What you're worth, because, and when you do this, you'll have more confidence to ask. Okay, my 6-month package is this much, and then when I say that to prospects, you know, I pause for effect. I pause because number one, they're thinking about the information I just shared, right? And I pause because I want them to think about the number that's just been shared with them, and that think about, oh my goodness, she's not cheap. I'm not cheap. And guess what? Neither are you. So time is currency. Your time, you're worth, I mean, you can't put a number on your worth.
Right.
You're priceless. You are priceless. However, when it comes down to business, come up with that number and be confident in asking for that number. And how do you do that? By looking at all your accomplishments and everything you've accomplished thus far and knowing this is how much I'm asking for this or that. And the confidence, you know, I mean, you can see when somebody's confident, it just shines through.
Yeah.
But those are some of the things that I share with my clients that reinforces what they've accomplished, because they forget.
Yeah.
We forget. We're human beings. But when they start writing and looking, oh my goodness. So now that you have this list of 50 accomplishments, keep adding to this list and have it visibly clear. So you know next time when you go in for that, you know, that job, that next promotion, when you're asking for what how much your services are, you have that list and you know, this is how much my 6-month program is.
You are a breath of fresh air, and you
No.
are definitely your father's daughter. May he rest in peace, Miguel. Thank you so much for sharing so much about you personally, your Marine Corps career and where it's led you, and how you're offering help to people who might want to hire you as a consultant. Speaking of which, how do they find you? I gave the website Sandra, Sandra, Gonzalez, Gonzalez.com. And LinkedIn is how I found you. So do you have a lot of letters after your name? Remind me how they find you on. I bet there's a few Sandra Gonzalez on LinkedIn.
Yes. Yes. So it's Coach Sandra Gonzalez on LinkedIn. Thank you for clarifying that, Cheryl. Same thing with Instagram, Coach Sandra Gonzalez. Actually do have free training if anybody's interested in a masterclass. SexyConfidenceTraining.com. It's a masterclass. So high caliber leaders, entrepreneurs, veteran entrepreneurs understand what sexy confidence is all about. And, you know, they can move forward and schedule an assessment call with me if they're interested. But I'm here to serve. And it's been an honor being here. Thank you for having me, Cheryl.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your grit. You are not just beautiful, but you have a lot of grace and a lot of grit. And that's something that You can't buy that at the grocery store, that's for sure. We'll have you back at another segment, I'm sure. We'll probably bring you back for the 5+ year veteran segment so you can talk about your personal
Absolutely.
transition from the military. But I thought you'd be more valuable as an expert giving advice and helping people on this really interesting transition from military service. All right, my name is Cheryl Cross. You're listening to the Military to Civilian Career Transition Power Hour. We're going to be right back, and we'll be listening to somebody who's been out at least 1, but not more than 4 years. So stay tuned. We'll be back after a brief break.
Welcome to Exchange.
As we hit the bottom of the hour, we roll into our veterans who are either 1 to 4 years out of the military. That means they've been in the civilian workforce just a bit, not quite 5 years, and they're still getting what I call their sea legs. Not quite a Navy corpsman, but a Marine Corps folk. He comes to us from the great state of Wisconsin, Justin Griffiths. Hi, Justin. Thanks
Hi,
for
Cheryl.
joining us.
No, great to be here. I'm happy to be here and talk with you.
You and I were talking regarding other things, and I said to him, you know what? I want you on the podcast. You're full of energy. You're full of stories. Your story transitioning out of the Marine Corps was very unique. Why don't you go ahead and launch into what it is that brought you to Wisconsin and what you're doing now?
I transitioned out of the Marine Corps in 2020. I was stationed in Okinawa, transitioned back stateside just on the front end of COVID. So when I got back, no job, no house, no car. It was a complete restart of life, and doing it in a time when there was a lot going on in the country. And so I kind of just did a nationwide job search. I got on with one of those kind of headhunter companies and did 8 interviews in 2 days to try and find work, and got a job offer. I got several job offers across multiple states, but prior to my transition, I attended a Hiring Our Heroes event in which Steve Yonke gave a brief on the great state of Wisconsin, on all the military benefits that are afforded here. And that was kind of one of the job offers was for Wisconsin. I said, hey, great, never been. Let's go. I thought it was like Kansas, but colder. So I was like, let's do that. Sounds good. And got up here and started doing the job. And yeah, it's been great.
When people come from Oconus, or especially Japan, Okinawa, South Korea, they're buying houses sight unseen. Did you do that, or did you have a chance to? Yeah.
Nope, I sure did. Yeah, which is an exercise in what not to do. Yeah. So again, during that COVID time, like the housing market was bananas. The interest rates were super low, so people were buying up houses like crazy. We actually, my wife and my 2 daughters took a trip to Wisconsin to kind of just learn about the area and see what was there. And we actually got hooked up with a realtor, and I think we hit like 30 houses in 2 days looking for homes. And we left Wisconsin and put a bid on a house. We weren't even off the plane yet, and the bid got denied because they had received like 13 bids. So we just started looking online, and a house popped up, and I think it had been posted for like 3 hours. And I hit my realtor, and I was like, hey, pictures look great. Like, put a bid on it. And he replied back, got it. And then he replied back, he's like, hey, there are already 4 other bids on it. And I was like, oh, okay. So I said, well, what can you tell me? And the guy who was selling the house, he was actually going back into the Army. So I was like, oh, Yahtzee, hey, we got a little military connection. So I wrote a letter, and I was like, hey, man, like, I'm transitioning out of the military. I know you're going into the military. Loved your house. And I just talked about some of the features on the house. We had this screened-in porch off the back that's beautiful, and talked about my family and everything, and said, hey, I know you got a lot of offers. I hope you just consider our offer, because I know we weren't going to be the highest. We're doing the VA home buying stuff. I knew we weren't going to be the highest, but I just said, I hope you consider us. And then sent that off. My realtor got it to him, and then I think it was like 2 days later, we said, hey, they accepted your offer.
That's great.
Yeah. So got the house, got up here, and it was they had a phenomenal photographer, because we were looking at the pictures like, this is gonna be great. And then we got up here, it was like, it's a little different, but it's worked out.
Things can be quite deceiving. Yes, I see that too. When you go to the street view, it's a little different from that perfect, lit, beautiful nighttime. Mm-mm. And then you
Yeah.
see the trash next to you, the cars that are on blocks. And yeah, the street view is always, I troll Zillow quite a bit. I understand. Um, let's get to your career search. When you were coming out, you had a lot obviously on your plate. When did you start your career search? When was it? The last year, 2 years prior, 3 years prior?
No, so I actually started on, like I said, I attended the Hiring Our Heroes events just to kind of learn more about what I didn't know. I mean, I was Marine Corps basically from the time I got out of high school. And so my knowledge on the civilian workforce was pretty limited. I was like, so what are my options? I can basically it's like cop, firefighter, lawyer, doctor, or astronaut. That's the only jobs that are in the civilian market, right? I was basically a high schooler just in my lack of knowledge. So I attended the Hiring Heroes just to find out more about what was out there. I had an interest in finance. I was a command financial specialist while I was there, so I started talking to a couple of those companies, like the one of the
Industries.
banks. Yeah, one of the banks. Just being like a financial advisor and stuff like that, and learning how that pay structure is, and it interested me. But one of the things that kind of struck me was the difference in pay structure. In the military, everybody knows what everybody makes. You've got your paycheck on the 1st and the 15th, and there's no bonuses, there's no negotiations, there's nothing like that. And that was not the case in the civilian side. So as I learned more about that kind of shaped where I wanted to go. I needed stability for my family. That was important to me. But I also wanted to have the ability to grow. I didn't want to get out of a box and put myself into another box. I wanted the ability to grow. So that started shaping how I was looking for different jobs. And so when I did the headhunting company, they just said, well, what interests you? And I started talking to them about that. And that sort of guided me towards a certain field. And then personality wise, they said, oh yeah, you're kind of easy to talk to and you're, kind of out there and outgoing. I said some things during interviews that they said, oh yeah, nobody's ever said that before. And that was funny. It's like, oh, good. So it kind of just got me into this sales track, being part of the sales. And that was not something I'd ever thought I'd be doing. You think salesman, and in my mind, I started going, oh yeah, that's the dude in the used car lot with the sharkskin suit, alligator boots, greaseback hair, talking about that's not oil under the car, that's like sweat from all the horsepower. So I was like,
Yeah.
I didn't want that, but there's a whole different type of salespeople or salesperson that I was like, oh yeah, I can do that. And some of that can be helping people solve their problems. And for me, that's what I kind of like to do. Like, I like to help people. That's my bigger why. I got to help people through a sales job. So that's kind of how I ended up where I'm at now, and what got me into the first job that I had when I got out of the military.
How hard was it for you to call yourself a salesperson and go through? Did they train you, or did you have to go and do your own trainings? I'm curious.
No, there was. So first question, how hard was it? It was super hard because I still cannot get that image out of my brain as far as that, when you hear sales and you tell people, oh, I'm a salesman, there is a reaction from that person because a lot of people have that same. So I don't like calling myself a sales guy. And I actually just changed my job title specifically so I didn't have that in my title anymore. But the training, yeah, on the first job. So I started out, the company I got hired with was Kaiser Compressors. They do industrial air compressor sales. And they are a international company. And I had to go through a training kind of pipeline with them to learn, well, one, about compressors, because I had no idea about anything about those, but then how to talk to customers, how to show value, provide value, and how to kind of solve their problem. Those pushy car salesman guys, they're in it for them. An effective and a good salesman is somebody who is there for the customer. You have a problem. How can I help you solve the problem? Here's how what I have can help you solve your problem. So there was a lot of training about how to do that. It was about I think it was like 1 month total with like updated training like every 6 months or something like that, like little trainings that you had to go through. So I had to go through that at first.
A lot of training in the military. How has your training experience followed? Do you find there's enough training in the work that you've had, or should there be more? What do you think?
I think in terms of like in the sales industry.
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think yes. I think a lot of military skills and a lot of stuff that you do in the military will translate very well to almost any job in the civilian sector because there's a grit, there's a stick-to-itiveness, there is the ability to communicate effectively. We shoot, move, communicate. Well, you have to be able to do that, and to do that, you have to be able to think on your feet and kind of observe, orient, decide, and act. We call it the OODA loop, right? You have to do that consecutively or quickly, which lends itself to a lot of industries. But when you get out of the military, there is an expectation that you are stepping into the job already with a certain set of skills that pertain to that job, which is why you go through the application and the interview process to, hey, are you a good fit for this job?
Mhm.
But yeah, I do think there needs to be a little bit more training available to those people who I can do this, but I just need a little bit of refinement in this specific area, kind of become that subject matter expert.
Without telling the name of the company, your first job out of the military, did they understand where you were coming from? Did you feel that there was a good, we call it onboarding in
Mm-hmm.
the HR world? Was there a good process for you to sort of dekludge from being so long in the military into coming into this company?
Yeah. Yeah, I think they did a fantastic job. My direct boss, was actually a former Marine as well, or a Marine, a retired Marine. So he knew where I was coming from, and he specifically kind of held my hand and walked me through it and offered himself like, hey, when you're going through this is a big transition. If you have questions, reach out to me. So that was a huge, huge help. But they did a great job of kind of walking me through the company and explaining like, oh yeah, no, you can't say that kind of thing in polite company. Oh yeah, no, that makes sense. And a lot of it I knew, but again, I just kind of like pushing buttons and pushing boundaries a little bit, catching
And
people off guard a little bit.
you got away with it, I bet, too. One of the things you and I resonate on is not leaving benefits on the table.
Yes.
And I see that you got your degree while being a service member.
Mhm.
And I'm curious what your thoughts are as people continue on with these companies that have so many opportunities to learn. But what about those folks that are still transitioning? How can they potentially, I don't know, best prepare themselves for the marketplace by thinking ahead through
Mhm.
education, through certifications? What are your thoughts?
It's an absolute must. You have to. When you join the military, you have basically written a blank check, right? I'm going to go and do this. I'm going to give my service to the country, and in doing that, you are afforded certain benefits that you can take advantage of, and you absolutely need to take advantage of those benefits. So if I was walking down the street and I saw a $20 bill, I'm not going to pass that $20 bill. Well, some of these service members, they're literally walking by $4,000. They're walking by, a college degree, and they're just not taking advantage of it, or certifications, and they're just not taking advantage of it. In the military, we get so focused on the mission of what we're doing and accomplishing the mission that we kind of forget that nobody has our best interests at heart more than ourselves, right? And so you have to start, you still got to accomplish the mission, you still got to take care of your troops, but you need to start setting yourself up for success as well, because one day that relationship between you and the service is going to end. You will have to take off the bush suit. You're going to have to grow a beard, maybe not, but recommended. You're going to have to get out of the service, and you're going to have to do something beyond that. A lot of the certifications you earn in the military are military specific, which are great in terms of career progression there, but they don't necessarily translate on the civilian sector. So research, first thing is you kind of have to find out what your why is or what you want to do. And then once you do that, start researching the civilian certifications or the civilian degrees or whatever it is that will help you get that job or do that successfully in the civilian market. One of the things that, you go through TAPS. Every service member have to go through TAPS when they're exiting the military. And one of the things they always say there is you have leadership experience, which is true. It's 100% true. But how do you market that or explain that to somebody on the civilian side, right? We speak a different language. And so if I go to a civilian hire or HR and I say, oh, yeah, no, I led convoy operations in austere environments in support of the major war effort while delivering beam bolts and Band-Aids and liaisoning with TCNs. Service members are going to be like, oh, yeah, no, I know what you just said. A hiring company is going to be like, that wasn't English. So learning the language is important, and earning the certifications or getting the education in the civilian market will help you kind of do that Rosetta Stone translation and set yourself up for success.
Give us a line that you gave an HR manager or a hiring team to really translate what you did. Take that scenario that you just said of
Sure.
what they did and make it civilian speak for me.
So the big thing that I did is you can tell your capabilities, but it's stories that resonate. For a little backstory, I earned my project management professional certification while I was in the military, paid for by the military, and that helped set me up. And so when I was going through my hiring process to sell compressors, they're like, well, hey, you've got a customer who comes to you with a problem. How would you handle that problem? Or you have employees that are having this issue. How would you handle that issue? And I basically said, well, the first thing you have to do is you have to consider where the other people are coming from. You have to understand what the problem is before you can solve it. And so I don't think I'm doing a good job of explaining it, but the answer that I gave was you have to consider all the avenues or all the considerations, and then you have to also keep in mind what is the goal of the company? What is my job and what am I supposed to be doing? And I have to balance it. So I have to consider my stakeholders that I've got involved. I have to consider my boss. I've got to consider my workers, and I've got to consider the customer. I have to consider my limitations. What am I allowed to do? What am I not allowed to do? I have to consider the risks with every single one of those actions. And then I have to consider the desired outcome or the end state. And as I'm considering those, I will approach that problem, discuss that with all of those stakeholders, consider all the risks and benefits and advantages, and then I will determine what the most probable result and the most profitable result would be for the company. And they were like, oh, that makes sense. And then I throw in jokes and I talk silly too, so try to distract them for anything that I said that didn't make sense.
All right. Well, I think you're doing a great job. So again, go back to leaving things on the table. I want to hear what you're doing now because I don't think you're selling compressors anymore.
The company I work for is called PM ProLearn, and we actually help service members take advantage of those benefits by providing training in those certifications that they can earn. So we do project management training, agile training, so ACP, and Lean Six Sigma. And we are one of 2 vendors that are approved to use your GI Bill to get your those certifications. And we also are, like for Army, we are Army CA approved. For Air Force, we are Air Force Cool approved. So you can use the benefits that you have to come and earn those certifications. And so what I do is I talk to service members. I travel around. I attend education fairs and transition fairs, and I try to do the hiring our heroes. But I attend those events to educate service members about the benefits that they have, because it would probably shock you the number of people who have no idea that they have those benefits. So I educate them on those, and then I just say, hey, I don't know where you want to be when you transition out of the service. I don't know what path you want to take, but this is the path that I took, and this is how it worked for me, and this is what it's afforded me the opportunities to do. So if you think that you want to take a path that's similar to this, you don't have to hack your way through that jungle of the unknown alone and afraid. You can talk to me or my company, and we will help guide you. We'll walk that path with you to help get you to where you want to be. And then we have other partners, people that we work with, companies that we work with that are looking for the people who are coming on the backside of our training. And then we just do that soft handover introduction. Hey, this is John Ticklefight. he's a fantastic dude. He just went through our training and he wants to do something that I think you might be able to help him with.
Tell me, are you connected to employers at all? Do you have any
Yeah.
type of career services?
Not direct employers, not the people who are doing the hiring, but we have companies that we work with. So like Semper Forward or Mission Wisconsin, which is our friend Steve Yonkey's company.
Right.
There is Fusion Cell, which is another fantastic company. And they are kind of those, they are also military centric, service member owned and operated. And they will work with the service member to same thing. Like, what do you want to do? Where do you want to live? Where do you, what kind of pay are you looking for? And they will work with the hiring companies that they are partnered with to help that service member find a job. So we don't have anybody that's specifically like, hey, send me your PMPs and we'll get them a job. It's more of send me the people that you've worked with and we will help them find a job.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I've always, when I met you for another reason. And then we started talking. I was like, oh, I got to get you on the podcast because your energy, I like your energy, and your jokes are good. I'm funnier, but your jokes are good.
Absolutely. No, it's a really low bar with me, but in order to meet your expectations, I had to lower your standards. That's it.
Oh, there you go. Tell me something. What's ahead for you? What's in the next 5 years? Are you thinking what you're going to be doing?
I love the company I work for. I'm going to work for them for the foreseeable future. But I don't want all my eggs in a single basket. So I kind of want to get out there and stretch my entrepreneurial legs a little bit. I've got one daughter in college. I've got another one who's a freshman in high school. So that takes some of the consideration or has to be considered when I'm thinking about the future. I kind of want to buy a chunk of land, build some cabins and make like almost like a vacation site where people can come and experience like an older style of life. Hey, we've got cabins where you can come and stay, and then we can go on this property. You can go fishing, horseback riding, raise some bison. We can, let's go look at some of American history, and just kind of do an older lifestyle, but an education and a vacation spot that people can come and experience. When I was in high school, there was a school in Colorado. It's called OELS, Outdoor Education Laboratory School, and you take high school leaders with the teachers take sixth graders to the mountains, to these sites, these locations, and they do all that kind of stuff. And it had a huge impact on my life. And I don't know why it has to end at sixth grade. So I kind of want to do that for like some adults. There are people who live in the cities who have never been outside of their comfort zone. And I want to create a spot that people can come and do that.
Well, you're in a beautiful state. So be sure to invite me. I want to stay in one of the cottages and sit in the lounge and with the big fireplace. Yeah.
Yeah. Come in December or January. You'll love it. The transition from Hawaii to Wisconsin in January is super easy.
Yeah, right.
You probably won't even notice a difference.
Not at all. I'll be sure to wear my slippers and my shorts for sure.
Absolutely. Yep. You'll be well prepared to handle the Wisconsin winter.
I see you. Yeah. Well, Justin, you're fun. And thank you so much. I know that you're somebody who likes to mentor and give back. And I know you do a lot of that through your job anyway. You're touring all over the country and other places for hiring our heroes and those job fairs. But if somebody wanted to reach out to you and ask you if you do some personal mentoring or had some questions, how might they find you?
Best way to find me is, if you look, you can search me up on LinkedIn, just Justin Griffiths. My little tagline has like Mountain Man in it. So, and then it's got this mug on it. So definitely hit me up on LinkedIn. You can email me at jgriffis, Griffis, at pm-prolearn, PROLEARN.com, like I'm a professional learner. Or you can just go to PM ProLearn's website and click the About Us, and I'm listed there. You can definitely hit me up there. Those are probably the easiest ways to get a hold of me. And absolutely, I hope people write this down. Transition's big. Going from that military lifestyle to the next step is hard and it's scary. So having somebody to go, hey man, this is what I'm thinking. What do you think? Yeah, absolutely. Having that resource, I would love to be your belly button. I would love to help you. Even if you just have like a question that you don't know that you're going to get the straight skinny, hit me up. one of the things that I found the most fascinating as I was going through my transition is I was relying on the people that I've always relied on, which was my senior leadership. So, hey, sir, I'm about to get out. What should I be doing? And they're telling me stuff. And it's like, afterwards, I was like, why did I do that? He's never done it. I'm doing it. So I would, if another bit of advice would be get out of your bubble, the military bubble, and start talking to those people who are not in that bubble because they probably have a little bit more insight than the people who are above you or adjacent to you.
That's a clip right there. That is perfect advice, and I want to say thank you so much. Our guest in our 1 to 4 year segment for veterans is Justin Griffiths, and he's been a great guest. Thanks, Justin.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you.
This is the Military to Civilian Career Transition Power Hour. I'm your host, Cheryl Cross. We're going to take a brief break and be right back. As we round out the last segment of our episode today, I have the honor of bringing you a Marine. Once a Marine, always a Marine. Please meet sales, veterapreneur, and former Marine, Donnie Bovine. Hi, Donnie. Thanks so much for joining me. How are you today?
Hey, Cheryl. Glad to be here. You know, they say once a Marine, always a Marine. So why the hell would you ever re-enlist? So thanks for having me on. Every time I've talked to you, I've really, really enjoyed it. So I'm looking forward to hanging out.
Thank you. You bring me such great value adds, and that's what you do. You go on stage and talk to thousands of people. You're here to not only talk about your transition story, but I think you're a great shot of B12. So going back, and I don't think anybody's really asked you your transition story, so I feel
not
very
a whole
special.
lot. I mean, once or twice, but not a whole lot.
It's been a couple years, but
Yeah.
I want you to talk really about what brought you to where you are today, career-wise.
For sure. So I served in the Marine Corps 95 to 99. I was in the Clinton era, so the really shitty sit around, do nothing area. I didn't even ask if I could cuss on your show, so if I can, I apologize.
Cuss away.
All right, cool.
Cuss away.
It'd be better if I can just be myself. So, you know, I'll be honest. I was one of those guys. I didn't sign up for the military because I was going to defend the country or any heroic thing like that. I went to the military because I didn't know what the hell I wanted to be when I grew up, right? My oldest brother had gone to the Marine Corps. I was heading down a shitty path, was probably going to end up in jail if I didn't watch my ass. So I went to the Marine Corps because I didn't know what else to do. So, but I can tell you the day I stood on the yellow footprints, I knew I'd fucked up. Because I'm not a guy that likes being told what to do. I don't want to be told where to be, all that kind of stuff. And for the next 4 years, somebody was telling me how to dress, how to act, you know. And so I'm very, very proud of my time when I was in the Marine Corps. I'm glad I did it. But I was definitely not the guy that was cut out to say the Marine Corps was going to be my touchdown pass, if you will. You know, a lot of guys, when you talk to them after they've been out for a number of years, are like, oh, I should have stayed in, or, you know, the Marine Corps or the military was my thing. I should have done the 20. And I'm like, no, go back to how you felt when you got out. You wanted the hell out. Most of them, not all. Some got injured and got out. That's a different story, right? But a lot of us, you know, we did our 4, we split, and we got out. I will say that I'm one of the lucky ones when I got out. The Marine Corps did nothing for me as far as a corporate career, as far as giving me tools to be prepared for getting into business. I was a motor T mechanic, right? And so we had I think we even talked about the TAPS program when we got out. And that was a joke. You had a guy who'd never been in corporate America trying to teach, you know, corporate America stuff. Like, this is how you do an interview. This is how, and I'm like, dude, you've never even filled it out. And it was some staff sergeant or some gunny trying to teach us this stuff that he'd never done. I'm like, this is a joke. So for me, it was literally a check the box. I went through TAPS, you know, type program. But when I got out, I lucked out, and my best friend and his dad ran a heating and air conditioning company. So a lot of my buddies, when they got out, they really struggled to find work, but I went instantly into a job. And that saved my ass, I think, a lot. Now, it was a job I hated because I was the grunt now for a heating and air conditioning company, which means I was a guy climbing in the attics and under the houses and doing all the hot, dirty work that was just miserable. And how I got to where I am now from there is I tried to quit that job. I was like, I'm done. I'm not going to do this. This is dirty. It's hot. We're in Texas. It's nasty. I don't want to do any of this. And as I tried to quit, the owner of the company, Jerry, goes, hold on. Before you quit, I want you to try something for me. And I said, Jerry, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. He goes, wait. He goes, tomorrow, come in a polo and a pair of blue jeans, and I'm going to drop you in a neighborhood, and I want you to go knock on doors and see if people come let us look at their air conditioning systems. And I said, I'm in. He goes, wait, now before you say you're in, understand that if we don't sell something, we don't fix something, you don't get paid. And I said, wait, I don't have to climb in attics. I don't have to climb under houses and do all the dirty work. He goes, no. I said, I'm in. So I started my door-to-door sales career off doing that to get out of a job that I was going to quit. That started me off my sales career, my sales path. I've spent 25 years in sales, 20 of those years working for other people. Now I'm 6.5 years in my own company. I'm the CEO of Success Champions Networking. I have one of the top podcasts called Growth Mode, 5 best-selling books, and a partridge in a pear tree. So there's the quick rendition to get you to where we are now.
Talk about leveraging your strength. And a salesperson was born. Do you ever get tired of being the salesperson?
My wife would tell you yes. She's like, can you ever turn it off? The truth be told, I got tired of being the sales guy I was in my younger years, because in my younger years, I got more into and your more seasoned people understand, it's the Glengarry, Glenn Ross style of sales, of always be closing, right?
Coffees for closers. Yes.
Yep. The hammer in the phones, that style of sale, I burned out on. Like, I just could not, I didn't like the guy I was being at that career at that moment in time. I learned that there's a lot more fun in understanding the lifetime value of a relationship. So once I understood that I wasn't trying to sell to get the deal done, I was selling so I could have a relationship for the next 5, 10, 20 years. It completely transformed. That guy I like. I really love the guy I am now, because now I'm doing it for myself and not somebody else. And so I get a real opportunity to pour into businesses, company, and people to help them really grow their businesses and companies through networking and the likes. This has become really fun. It's not even hardly a sale anymore, because I give them an opportunity to come join a community of other people that are doing some really cool things. I just happen to be the figurehead at the top of it. So this is a whole different way of selling and a whole different way of being. So this style I learned, but you go back to those younger years. Yeah, I didn't like that guy at all.
I can attest that you certainly lead with value. When we first talked on the phone, you wanted to make sure I didn't have 2 heads and were out to, take advantage of you in some way. But you gave me such great advice that I took through a conference, advice that I still use every day. And that was a 10-minute conversation. So how do you lead with value for those of the people that are listening who really want to maybe not turn into the cheesy salesperson?
So for me, everybody has a story. And I'm always fascinated with people's journey, because you can tell so much about an individual as they share their story and they talk about how they got where they are. And when I hear somebody's stories, I've just got a natural inclination to start making a lot of assumptions. Like if somebody's been a year in business, I can make a lot of assumptions of where they are. If they're 5 years in business, I can make a lot of assumptions about where they are for there. If they're 10, 20 years in business, it all tells a story. So as somebody is giving us their story, there's a lot of things that we can make some cool assumptions about. And based off those assumptions lets me know where I can provide the most value for them. Like, for instance, if somebody's a year into business, I know they're struggling financially. They're trying to get all their ducks in a row, right? They're trying to figure out their brand. They're trying to figure out what the business is. Cool. That's going to take me down a path of going, here's everything I fucked up my first year of business. This is all the things I screwed up. And it really lets them know, hey, they're not alone anymore, right? And so I can provide a ton of value. If they're 5 years in the business, now I know, okay, now they're starting to hire people. They're starting to build a team. They're starting to think about culture and the like. Cool. Let me tell you about everywhere I screwed up there. And I have found by sharing my screw ups of where they are on their journey, gives them an absolute roadmap that they can choose if they want to follow. And, nobody did this for me, right? As I was building my business, nobody said, "Hey, Donnie, I know you're about a year in business, and I bet this shit is really hard right now. I bet you're really struggling here. Here's some things that I did that you could find of value." Nobody did that for me. So I'm like, dude, I'm going to be the guy. I'm going to go out and I'm going to share all my screw ups, all my fuck ups. I'm going to share all the things that I wish somebody would have stood. Because if one person would have stood up and said, "Man, this shit's hard. Building a business is ridiculously hard to do," I wouldn't have felt like such a damn island. So that's the main reason I do this. It just comes across as value because I want people, by the time I'm done talking with them, I want them to have an absolute action that they can take that's going to drastically impact their life. As a bonus, it's going to drastically impact their business. And I think most people look at every conversation as a sales call, not as a relationship. And that's the biggest difference.
Did you do any intelligence? Did they teach you any intelligence techniques in the Marine Corps?
I was in Marine Corps. Marine Corps intelligence is an oxymoron in itself. So no, but no, I didn't do any intelligence. I was a motor T mechanic. Yeah. So,
you could collect intelligence out there somewhere. You could bring it back to the command. Somebody's
if we collected intelligence because somebody left something in a damn Humvee, I mean, so,
okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
None of that.
But how do you do it now? How would you recommend somebody learn through storytelling to get to the sale?
Yeah. So it depends on the sale. If you're selling to individuals, it's a lot easier to get somebody to say, "Hey, tell me your story. How'd you get here?" Right. And that's a really, really easy move. If you're selling B2B, the story dynamic changes a little bit. So first, you can't just say, "Tell me your story." But you can say, "Man, I know," like if you're selling to buyers, for instance, you can look at them and say, "Look, you know, what I sell. I'm the same as every other company out there. So I could try and convince you that I'm the best company out there, but that's irrelevant. I'm more interested. How did you become a buyer? What's that journey like for you to get to this role?" And what you'll find is you're changing the dynamic of that conversation as well. You can say that if they're a VP, if they're, a director, whatever their title is, you can just lead with that and go, "Look, there's 1,000 guys like me out there, and I'll just go back to the days I was selling commercial printing, right? Every commercial printer, it's the same printing, equipment. It's the same inks. There's nothing different other than the guy standing in front of you. Right. And I knew that going into every conversations. So I could go in and like roll out my freaking, brochure and say, "Here's all the things we do," which I already know because every print shop's the same. Or I can go in there and get to know the person individual. Growing up, people said, "Man, find commonality, find that thing on the wall that you can talk about." Well, that's most times doesn't work because people don't put shit on their walls, right? Maybe a certificate. I didn't do college, so I could never say, "Oh, I see you went to XYZ college. Let's talk." I didn't know fucking college. So for me, it became more fascinating about learning about their story. As people tell you their story, just going back to the assumptions, you can start forming a kind of, give them a personality, if they will. Like you can tell if somebody really earned this role, like they've been fighting it for their entire life to try and get there, right? Because they're really proud of the activities, right? You can lean on that. And also, as people tell your stories, you can start putting the pieces together because nobody gets to where they are in corporate life or everything else without the support of like a family or friends, right? So now you start filling in the little blanks in here. Okay, so now they're married, they got a couple kids, right? Which means they're obviously trying to take family vacations and you just start like a detective would putting this story together. And as you formulate the story, it's more about getting to know the absolute individual and knowing that the sales conversation is going to come down the way. Right? Because no transaction, especially in corporate America, is going to happen the first time you walk in the door. No. It's going to happen after a series of conversations over time. Most of my biggest deals I've ever done, like the Home Depot was a client of mine. Mm-hmm. I was talking to that buyer for 4 damn years. And all I would jokingly do is I'd talk to him about his family and his kids played soccer and whatnot. And I'd always jokingly every quarter or so say, "Hey, I'm still number 3 on the list. Like if somebody else drops a ball, I get that call, right?" And he'd laugh and say, "Sure, sure, sure." And about 4 years in, my phone rings and he goes, "How quick can you get to my office?" I said, leave your door open. And I dropped everything because it was Home Depot, and I raced straight to Home Depot. And the guy, when I got there, he flipped a postcard to me. He goes, I need 1 million of those in 36 hours. I said, done. Right. But that was 4 years of building a relationship with a guy, and the other printer had just screwed up the entire batch. And I was that guy that just continually showed up. So I was top of mind when the opportunity came. And then for the central US, I took over all of Home Depot's printing at that point.
So this was the ladder rung up to your next step.
Correct.
And it just happened. You didn't plan it. You didn't put it on your quota sheet.
No.
You didn't, yeah. It just came. But it came because they had you top of mind.
Absolutely. This and then they back with it already prepackaged up, and Jim's like, yep, I think we're going to move some things off the presses. And we got it done. And then that became a $1 million account for me going forward on a regular basis because of me just constantly staying top of mind. And what most people are looking at business in general is they're looking at it from a transactional standpoint of, how can I get you to say yes to me right now? Well, they're not going to say yes to you now. It's going to be yes over time.
You know, a lot of salespeople are entering into the world, non-traditional sales, that don't have this sort of, hey, this is your goal, this is your alignment, how are you substacked against everybody else? Those people aren't getting the same type of jobs anymore.
No.
They're hiring consultative people, consultative people.
Yep.
And I've even been looked at for these roles, so I can speak to this. They really want someone who's doing something different. And I can't tell you, I don't have goals and attainments as a consultant, but I'm out there constantly, and I'm consistently telling people my value. You know, I can build you this program. I can refine this program. I can do this. And if I can't do it, I know someone who can. So being a resource, are you also a resource? Let's say you work for ABC company. Are you able to bring in people that maybe don't do the same thing you do, but do you also bring that value to your clients? I'm curious.
Yeah, but I want to put a little bit different spin on it. So everybody on interviews and the likes, because I'm doing a ton of interviewing right now for people to come work for us, and they all say the same thing. Well, absolutely, I can do that. And you know, I put my spin on it. Or if I don't know the answer, I can find somebody. And it's a really frustrating response for me because it doesn't tell me anything. Okay, you're resourceful, so you tell me, but it doesn't give me anything to prove you're resourceful. I would rather somebody sit across from me and go, yeah, I see that. And I'm not sure if you've tried this, but have you thought about doing X, Y, and Z, and then doing this and this? Because I've done this in other arenas, and this is what I've found. I haven't done it in this industry. I haven't done it in this segment. So I'm not sure exactly how we could deploy it here, but I have the baseline of if we did this and this and this, it would allow you to do this in your company. If somebody did that to me, it would knock me off my fucking socks. Right? Because that's really being a consultant at that point. The consultant doesn't offer up a blanket generic statement of, oh, I can handle that for you. No, the consultant says, no. Here, I've been here before. I know how to get out of this hole, or I know how to get past this moment. Here's what we can do to start deploying and getting this done. A consultant tells you what to do. Right. And that's the difference. So if you look at it from a consultative sale, it's being a very humble consultant, because people are in a sales call, people are very prideful and protective of what they do. Mm-hmm. So you can't go up to somebody in a first call and go, hey, let me tell you how to do your job. Right. It's a surefire way to get kicked out the freaking door. But you can come in and you use basically third-party stories and say, well, I'm hearing you say that you guys have X, Y, and Z. When I worked with X, Y, and Z company, what I found is we deployed, we did this, we went this direction. You guys have likely tried this or something very similar to this. When you deployed that kind of strategy, how did it work for you guys? And it's a finite twist versus saying, this is what you should do, to come back to find out. And this is the assuming side of things. You're trying to find out, have they actually done this? Because if they have and it didn't work, right? And they're like, oh yeah, I tried that. That was stupid. It didn't work for us. Right. But if you come at it from the assumption, if we've tried something like this, did you guys try something like that as well? And they're like, oh my God, no, ever. Or yeah, we have, it didn't work. why do you think it didn't work? Right? It gives you a more to a conversation. And I think the greatest skill of any salesperson on the planet is not their confidence, not their conversation skills, not their closing. It's the ability to ask the right questions, period. Because those questions are what opens up the dialogue for everything. What most people do is because they get so nervous, whether it's an interview, whether it's a sales call, is they start talking about themselves, their business, their company, the things they're into. Nobody gives a shit.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You have to flip the script and come at it from that consultative side of things, make the assumptions, and then let them tell you if you're heading in the right direction or not.
There's great power in wanting to learn about someone.
Oh.
You know, I lived in Los Angeles for many years, and the joke was the only people that listened to you were your therapist and your mother. Nobody else cared.
Yep.
No one cared unless you could do something for someone.
Yep.
They'd move on. So if you really wanted someone to sit there and ask you questions, they probably were trying to rob you, or you were paying them $250 an hour because they're your psychiatrist, you know, or your life coach. The power of why. Why is that? Let's role play for something, because this is something I'm always like, what can I do for you today? Which is the dumbest thing you can ask, because they don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I really feel that people do not know, but I still, to this day, Donnie, I do this to my kid. He hates it. Mom, stop. Don't do that. What can I do for you today? I always feel like it's just the little bow on the present, but I'm finding that it's kind of a dumb thing to say. So how could I ask that in a different way without saying it?
You ready?
Yeah.
And I want you to answer this question when I ask it.
You bet.
Cheryl, what matters to you right now?
My health, my wealth, my family.
Why is that?
I think those are the things that will sustain me over the long run, and I'm looking at the long run. Both my parents died in their 90s.
All right,
so
pause,
I'm looking.
Pause.
Nope.
That's it.
Don't go into the story. Okay.
No. You answered the question exactly like I was expecting you to answer the question. I didn't say, how can I help you? I said, what matters to you?
Mm.
Right? That one change of words, what matters to you, right? You could have gone anywhere and said anything. No matter what I think, what I want to talk about, what I'm into, doesn't fucking matter. What matters to you right now is your health, your family. And you automatically started going in and started telling me about your parents and where they lived, right? You're going to tell me a whole damn story.
Mm-hmm.
What that allows me to do is to figure out, how can I fit into that story? So let's say I hadn't cut you off and you had talked about your parents and their health history and the likes. I'm like, wow, man, I get that. I just signed up for a Tough Mudder myself because I knew I needed something out front to have to aim at to get it done. What are you doing in your life to really focus on your health? Right? It gives me a way to get a dialogue going in a conversation. It allows them to lean in and start talking about themselves, which is the magic of great questions.
What are some of the other great questions that you recommend?
Some of my favorite ones that I always lead with is just tell me your story, and just leave it as simple as that, because tell me your story just allows people to open up. What matters to you now is another great one I've been using for a long time. Other questions that you can get are just very, very, very small questions. Sometimes they're not even words. Like one of my greatest, questions is, really? Tell me more. What does that mean? Oh man, that's fascinating. Right? And you just watch. People often are not used to somebody who can carry on a conversation because we're so used to be talking about ourselves.
Yeah.
Right? So you have to have the ability to actually geek out on somebody, but you also have to have in your back the goal in the back of your head of, where are you taking this person? Right? What journey, what's the end goal you need for this person to have? And so when I sit across from an individual, right, I'm trying to figure out, can they fit somewhere in one of my companies? Right? Can I do something with them to help them grow their business? Maybe it's put them in this session. Maybe they need to attend one of our summits or the likes. I'm always trying to put somebody into a box, not in a negative way. It's just, I know how best to serve them at that point. So if I stay curious and I know my end goal is to put them somewhere And maybe one of those boxes is doing nothing with me because there's nothing at this point of their journey that I can do with them, right? We're just going to become great friends. I'm going to pour a ton of value into them. So, because I know if I can give them such value in the moment that I give them one thing that they can carry with them for the rest of their life, use and deploy, guess what? I stay top of mind for the rest of their fucking life. And anytime something comes up, my name's going to come up, right? So it's that curiosity, that consultative nature. It's that ability to ask the questions to get them to freaking lean into you. But most times those questions can be just those little tiny questions, and they're just powerful.
Let's spend the next 5 minutes flipping the script. A lot of the folks that are listening are trying to figure out their trajectory out of the military into the civilian world, which is to them an incredibly different terrain. So they're looking at interviewing, which they've never done. They're looking at negotiating salaries, which they've never had to do. What would you say to them to work on 3 years, 2 years, 1 year in the soup during their interview sessions, or even outside of the military, sucking at a career, not liking where they're at? What would you say?
One, go start a business. If you're 2-3 years before you get out, go start a company right now. And the reason I'll tell you to go start a company right now is because you've got a guaranteed income coming in to cover your ass through all the fuck up years. Because your first year in business, first 2 years in business, first 3 years in business, those years suck, right? Because you're breaking everything, you're screwing everything up. You have no idea what the hell you're doing. Go start a business. And I don't give a shit what it is. It can be a blue collar handyman business, plumbing business, roofing business. It can be a nowadays social business. You can go freaking create social graphic for somebody. You can try and go the influencer route. If you're into games, go be a gamer. I don't give a shit, but start a company. I wish I would have started a company 20 years ago because I don't think there's any tool better on the planet to meet the dude in the mirror than building a business. Because I did 4 years in the Marine Corps. I did 25 years now in sales, and people would tell me those are probably two of the toughest things in the world to actually do. And I'd tell them to fuck off. Building a business is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And you're going to figure out what you're made of really damn quick by building a business, because you're going to run out of your own excuses, right? At some point, you're going to realize that there's no excuses left. You want to make more money? Go sell more, right? You want to get out of the lifestyle that you're into? Go build something that has your name, your brand attached for it. So that'd be the number one thing. The second thing is any job you take, do not take what's in front of you. Take the job that will give you the skill set that will move you forward in life. One of the greatest takeaways I've gotten from Mark Cuban over the years is he never took a job to take a job. He took a job to learn a skill set. He didn't know how to sell, so he went and got a sales job. He didn't know anything about computers and tech, so he went and got a tech job. He didn't know how to lead people, so he got himself a management job, right? Everything was set to learn a skill set. The job did not fucking matter. Most of us, when we get, like, I took the heating and air conditioning job when I first got out. Why? Because it was fucking there. Every job I took after that is because somebody offered it to me. Yep. I didn't until I was 40 years old go, ooh, maybe I should figure out who I am and what I should do with my life, right? For 20 years after the Marine Corps, I spent living somebody else's dream, and to the point of a business partner looking at me and saying, thank God you're my retirement plan. I was literally somebody else's retirement plan. Ooh. Because I had never bet on myself. I'd never looked at the world and go, what do I want to be? And at 40, I couldn't tell you what I wanted to be. I just knew I didn't want to work for somebody else, but I couldn't tell you who I wanted to be because I hadn't done enough things to figure out what the hell I liked, what I was into. So don't take the job that's in front of you. Start looking at what skill sets do I need to learn that's going to push my life forward, and then go get that job. Eat shit and take a crappy job to learn the skill set, and then go get the next job that's going to teach you the next skill set, and keep leveling up the skill sets until you get to a place you're like, all right. I mean, look at Mark Cuban. Dude's a freaking billionaire now, following that philosophy. I think there's something to it.
I agree. Now, do you have to be an extrovert, or can introverts do this too?
I think here's my real philosophy on this. You can be an introvert all you freaking want. I'm introverted by nature. I am not an extroverted guy. I will put myself out there, right? But there are certain, like big crowds, I'm out, right? I'm just not a good guy in there. I like the 1, 2, maybe 3 conversation, right? Give me an intimate group. I do better in that setting, right? But here's the thing. There's no time for introversion when you're trying to build a career. If you want to be a person that sits behind a computer and freaking lives cubicle farming and all that, go be introverted. Get the engineer job, do that. Totally fine. Nothing wrong with it. If you're really trying to build a crazy ass life for yourself and do some wild, amazing things, there's no time to be a fucking introvert. You're going to have to go get into some crazy conversation, get into rooms with people that intimidate the shit out of you, right? Which is one of the greatest things I ever did, was go find myself to make sure I was the smallest fish in the room, and then learn to shut up in those rooms and listen and participate as a student in those rooms and not the teacher. But you can go get home that night and then totally veg out because you need to decompress from all the extrovertedness. But during the day, put yourself the fuck out there, because otherwise you're going to get left behind. There's just not time for it. Now, I'm not bashing on introverts by any means. I get it. You guys need longer time to recharge. But during the day, you need to be fucking gung-ho and then find a way to recharge when it's all said and done.
Like I said earlier, Donnie is a shot of B12, and I hope that a lot of folks are reaching out to you. The reason I found you, Donnie, is that you are offering a lot of value to folks who are leaving the military, or I wouldn't have called you. I wouldn't have said, hey, I want you on the podcast. So how are you giving back? Are you mentoring, or are you just inviting people to participate in your sales conferences or your courses or your books? How does that work?
Yeah, the biggest, I mean, I have books out there, like my biggest selling book is a book called Fuck to Focus, which just talks about my business journey. You can find that on Amazon. There's an audio version of that as well. But a lot of people are just following me on LinkedIn. I mean, that's where I put out the most content, the most information. I'm starting to speak a hell of a lot more across the US. I know I'm on 7 stages as we record this. So I'm trying to find more opportunities to get on more stages to share this message in my style, because I just talk a little bit different than other people. I get that. I know I have a raw talent of, I like the idea of being a shot of B12. I think that's fun. I love being able to provide real value to people because I share it through my fuck ups and my stories and the like. So, but follow me on LinkedIn, find the Growth Mode podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. That's been a lot of fun to put out there. I've really enjoyed that. But wherever you find me, I mean, LinkedIn's a platform I'm most active on. Please come tell me you heard me on Cheryl's show. Send me a message, send me a connection request. If you want to grab a Zoom call, literally you can go to my profile right now and it says book a time with Donnie. You can grab a half hour with me because I just want to help as many people out as I possibly can. And that's just the world I'm in.
And it is the truth. He did it for me and he will do it for you. Spell your last name because lots of folks are just listening.
Yeah, so it's Bovine, B as in boy, O-I, V as in Victor, I-N as in NATO.
All right. Well, thanks, Donnie. I'm going to sign up for something as we finish this, and I'm going to continue to stay in touch with you beyond this.
Well, let me do this really quick for you.
Yeah.
Guys, if you're still hanging out with us and I got any value out of this episode, do Cheryl a favor for me. Take a screenshot wherever you're listening to this, post it out on social media, tag Cheryl and me in it. If I see that, I promise you, I will come comment on it and say thank you, in the likes. But literally, you sharing this show out for her, whether it's this episode or any of her other episodes, is the greatest thing you can do. Having my own show, I can tell you, building an audience is one of the toughest things in the world. This is like giving her a virtual hug. So if this show gives you any value, share it out with other people so more people can find and hear this wisdom from the great guest she's bringing on here. So thank you for having me on, love.
Thank you so much. Big hugs to you. All right. We were listening to Donnie Bovine. You can find him at all the links he said. We'll also hyperlink to all the links here. My name is Cheryl Cross. This is the Military to Civilian Career Transition Power Hour. You'll find it only on exchangepodcast.com. We'll be right back.